Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to WorkNet DuPage Virtual Job Club. Today, the topic is going to be navigating the ride of career change with Dr. Maria Malater, and looking forward to her presentation. She's presented here before, and it's wonderful. It's motivated me on many occasions. If you are new to WorkNet DuPage, please go to worknetdupage.org. I'm going to go over who we are in just a second. Excuse me. Again, my name is Jim Fergal. I'm the manager of Job Seeker and Veteran Services. Javon Morris and Jennifer Wigeman are workshop facilitators, and they will be here today, helping with the chat and the Q&A and letting people in. So WorkNet DuPage is a recipient of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA, as you may have heard in the community. We are funded by Congress. We do run a virtual job club, which is open to the public on Fridays from 9 to, I don't know, 10:15, 10:30, depending on questions. You do have to apply, because we are grant funded, you do have to qualify. If you qualify for training, there's grants up to $10,000. Talk about that in a second. And we also have job search workshops for people who are going through training or who qualify the grant. The training grants up to $10,000 can be for Agile, Scrum, PMP, Microsoft Office, and I don't know, healthcare, patient care tech, CDLA. So it's a myriad of different training that we have. We do have a layoff to launch workshop every Tuesday. Our application is on the website worknetdupage.org. When you go to worknetdupage.org, in the upper right-hand corner, it says Get Started. You fill out a questionnaire. One of our staff will contact you, find out what services you need, and then we'll also send you an application. Every Tuesday, we have the from layoff to launch. If you have already, if you are already working with one of our counselors, who could be Javon or Jennifer or one of our other counselors for training, you do not need to attend this, but if this is the first you've ever heard of us, then I would strongly recommend you sign up through our website for Tuesday at 9:30 is when it starts. And we're doing this for the next couple of Tuesdays. So you can qualify. It talks about how you may qualify for grants up to $10,000 and the different types of programs, how you can continue to receive your unemployment and there's no need to pay it back. The only thing we ask in return is that you let us know what type of position you have, salary and benefits, so that we can let Congress know that the program works and that they refund it for another year, meaning authorized funding, not take it back, authorized funding. Just so you know, some of you have known me for a while. In my tenure here, I've had many different positions, and the way the grant works is we have to keep the grant every year. We have to have 70% of the participants get jobs. And every year of my 25 years, we've done that. And also every year during my 25 years, we've hit the 80% mark of people getting jobs, which means we get incentive monies to serve more of the public. So I'm going to talk about this again at the end of the presentation, but please let us know when you have a job, what type of job, and the salary and the benefits, so that Congress can keep these type of programs out there to support you, the taxpayer. Okay. Some Zoom etiquette. All righty. We've got everyone on mute. Please use the chat room or the Q&A to have any questions. Jennifer and myself will be monitoring for questions, and we'll talk to Maria and let her know any questions that may come up. Please respect other people's opinions. No objectionable language. The Q&A is open for the panelists and the attendees and the host to interact. Please keep your microphones off unless we turn you on for speaking. And really, the whole purpose of this workshop is to offer assistance to everyone and to support everybody, and just to keep you going during these times of, I don't know, confusion, I guess would be the word to use, to keep you motivated, and we hope we're doing that. Okay, this is being recorded, and it will be posted. We have to edit it. Firstly, we have to download it, and then we have to edit it. So probably beginning of next week, it will be on our website at worknetdupage.org/webinars. I encourage you to visit that website because we have all of the virtual job clubs since we started Zooming back in the beginning of April. So there's a lot of great presentations on there. I encourage you to look at that. So let's get to our speaker, Dr. Maria Molater. I'll explain the bicycle in a moment. She's known as the Chief Change Agent, navigating the ride of change in organizations as well as with individuals. She's a published researcher, trainer, policy analyst, and professional keynote speaker who represents or presents on various topics, everything from leadership, career transitions, student retention, human resource strategies for embracing the older worker, and transformational retirement. Ooh, we have to learn about that sometime. Her content reflects her dynamic and diverse career as a highly rated speaker, trainer, shampoo girl, I don't know, we'll have to hear that one. Professor, coach, photographer, and consultant for Fortune 500, public and private organizations and the military across the country. Doc Maria has been internationally interviewed on her leadership, change management, and Encore career projects. I'm assuming Encore means for us Renaissance workers.
Yes, the Renaissance.
That's what I like to call us. I don't like older worker. And she's been quoted by the Chicago Tribune, Engineering Today, and the Daily Herald. Her thought leadership, inspiring speaking has wowed the national and international audiences. I think this is the third or fourth time we've had you asked you to present, and I've always found it wonderful. You'll hear Maria's story about bike riding, and as I was preparing for today, I thought this is a perfect picture of navigating that ride of career change. You need a little faith, right? So at this time, I am going to turn over the screen to Maria and let you do that.
Okay, perfect. And so, you know, I think it's so interesting that you shared that picture, because I know that in Lamont, they just recently opened the quarries. And so that's kind of an interesting place where there's going to be some adventurous biking. Now, I haven't really decided if I'm going to be doing that or not, but maybe. So, and you'll have to decide if you're going to do that too, Jim.
All righty. The trails are fine for me, the bike path.
Yeah, so anyway, well, hello, I'm Maria Molater. I'm so happy to be here and happy to share with you this Navigating the Ride of Change. And certainly we're in a lot of change occurring today. Every day it's changing, right? So I'm going to walk you through this experience of you work through and what I call the ride of change, because every day we're changing. So I'll walk you through an introduction about change. We'll look at some concepts on how to understand change. I'm going to talk about a mindset for life, but through using psychological capital. And then I'll have you look at wellness and change together. Because I think for me, and I've learned in my life experience, that I need a certain level of wellness to be successful moving through change. And as a professor over at the Chicago School, I am very good at giving homework. So I know they sent out handouts, and I know in the chat function there are handouts too, because I really think it's so important. You're spending an hour learning about something, and then where do you go next? And so I always encourage people to take action afterwards. So that's what we'll be doing. So first, we're going to kind of start out with change, the evolution of wheels. Now, I am a fan of biking, cycling. This is the evolution of my wheels. I'm not sure where your wheels began. You could probably put that up in the chat. You know, some people started with the big wheels. Some started with tricycles. Some had the training wheels. I know I had a fancy banana seat bike. I thought it was cool. It actually had leopard seat. It was very cool. Then I moved to 10 speed. And then it was lucky that Jim did share that great bike photo at the beginning, because I did have a BMX bike, and that was pretty cool. And we did do some jumps with it. And then the bottom row, those are my 3 current bikes. I don't know. Yeah, I have 3 current bikes because I do ride through all seasons. And and it is about change. I mean, I'm riding through all seasons. I have to be aware of all the different kind of dynamics of what happens in the changing seasons, riding through now where it's very easy, or through the snow. And I do ride through the snow, and I use the fat tire bike. So it's just been a really great tool for me to deal with change. It gives me an opportunity to think. And I've ridden about 5,700 miles in the past 10 years. So I've been at it for a while, and it's been so helpful for me to get my mind thinking clearly. And also that's been helpful for exercise too. And I only rode 3 miles today, which is good though. It's just something to keep me focused. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to maybe post, you know, some of your biking memories, or if, you know, if you're still biking today, because some people, one of my friends was talking to me, and he said that he was having the most difficult time even trying to buy a bicycle now, because so many places are sold out of bicycles, because so many people have turned to biking in the pandemic. So let's look at some of the other ways. Like, a lot of times people say that they don't like change, but just as we can see how the wheels have changed in the world today, we have continually adapted to change. And though we may not like it, we still adapt and move through it. How many of you had this phone? Some people still have this phone, by the way. I like it. I see some people raising their hands. Thank you. Thank you for raising your hands. Yeah. So I had this phone. I do want you to know that I took this picture. This is a picture I took. And I took this picture 4 years ago, by the way, in someone's house. They cannot dial in it, okay, because the technology does not allow them to dial, but they still can talk on the phone, and they feel like the clarity is so much better on that phone. But as you know, we've gone from rotary to touch tone to wireless to Skype, I mean, and to all the different cell phones. And it's just so interesting where we've evolved with phone technology today. And even take a look at where we are at now, even in this environment of Zoom. So there have been so many different changes, and you've adapted. How about the transformation of TV and media? Yeah, I am in the age group that had that TV, that type of TV. How many had that type of TV? Thank you for raising your hands. How many people have never seen that type of TV before? I guess you could add to the raising hands. Today, now think of this TV where it was definitely when you bought, I mean, and still today people are thinking about when you're where you're living, where you're placing your TV. But now people are thinking of where you're placing it on the wall. This is definitely the heaviest piece of furniture, one of the heaviest piece of furniture that we had to move around when you would move. And it was just so crazy. And heaven forbid you had to walk across the room and change the channels. That was so interesting. And and I had a black and white TV too. How many people had a black and white TV? And there you go. Yeah, I'm not a big TV watcher. I'm not a big TV watcher. So I had a black and white TV for a long time. I just never, it was just not something that I really got into for a long time. My friends, when they'd come over, they'd be irritated because I didn't have a TV. But anyway, so we've really evolved. And then I always think it's interesting because one of my coworkers, she is very, very into her dogs. And so we got her one of these video cameras on the right where she could communicate with her dogs while she was at work. So it was real interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not real convinced my cats would come to the video and talk to me. And of course, in this pandemic, though, they are ready to get me to leave the house. Anyhow, we have just had so much transformation and we've adapted. Now, if you are thinking that I really had a black and white TV for a long time, you got to know that I still have not adapted to the change and that I probably cannot program a remote, and I will admit that. So I did not adapt to that change. But the thing that you have to understand is that you have transformed and that you have adapted to change, and that sometimes we're pushed into change and sometimes we choose to change, but we continue to change and evolve. And right now we are in a lot of change, and so many of us are doing very well. And a lot of us, and it's on both sides. We're doing well and we're not doing well. And it's okay because it's going to vary in this pandemic. And it's really, when I talk a little bit more about wellness, it's about taking care of yourself because it's certainly going to vary. Okay, there you go. This is also a photograph I took, but I did see it in a store. So I did not type on one of these, but I did think the best class I took in high school, and I'm sharing a little bit of my age, was typing, because I thought it was so great because the keyboarding, it was so helpful. But just think about now, people, these days, everybody has to know keyboarding and typing skills. Everybody. It's just a given. So that wasn't reserved for certain people doing certain jobs. Everybody has to know how to and have that skill. So it's so interesting how things evolve. And we adapted and we continue to adapt. I mean, even when you think about if you are a person using a smartphone, even the way the keyboards have changed there, where you could have the sliding keys, where to write the words, you just slide instead of type. I don't know, it's all evolution. Or a lot of people don't even use the keyboards, they just talk. Of course, I see a lot of them in the stores. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I want everybody to hear my text, but that's okay. That's just me. Or maybe I do want to hear if it's good. Okay, now music has certainly evolved. And I think it is so interesting because when I first started this presentation, and it's evolved over time, I mean, I certainly had a record player or a turntable. And again, this was a photograph in someone's house a couple of years ago. So you can think about, how did you listen to music growing up and how has listening to music changed? Well, as we know today, I could go to the half-price bookstore over on 59, and there are tons of vinyl albums, and there's 45s, and it's just fabulous because, and even some of the concerts that I've been to, they're selling albums because now turntables are coming back. So it's very interesting. So you can listen to music all different kinds of ways, so many different ways. And so that continually is disrupting, causing change, and we have to learn to adapt. And we're doing it. And that's the good thing. And that's the same thing to think about when you're thinking about careers. Things change and you adapt and you change and grow. My favorite, I watch the Jetsons all the time. And you know, when I did some research on the Jetsons, you got to know that they were being shown from 1962 to 1988. Now, isn't that interesting? They had an Apple Watch and they had Zoom technology. Look at that. And if you look at the far right corner, you will see that they had a Roomba. Rastro on the bottom is riding the Roomba. And I just thought that was so interesting, how innovative. They were so forward thinking to even have an Apple Watch. That always just cracked me up. I thought it was so interesting. I'm kind of glad though that in the upper right hand corner that our bosses are not that big on the screens. Well, I don't know, maybe some people have the screens that big for when they're working, you know, or if they're interacting with their boss. But anyway, I just thought it was so innovative, like forward thinking of the Jetsons and Hanna-Barbera to put together this cartoon that actually evolved into reality. And when I watched it, I thought it would never come true. Now, we do not, well, maybe we do. We do not have the flying cars that were on here. I didn't put that on there, but maybe we will someday. I know that would help me with my commute when I have to, when we're in that environment of commuting. I always wished I had a helicopter sometimes when I would have to go downtown, but where would I park it? So anyhow, okay. So what is up with all this change? Well, we have to kind of consider, why do jobs change? Well, if technology is changing, our environment is changing, needs are changing, there's so many different pieces of the puzzle that are changing. So here is a comparison of the top 10 skills between what was needed in 2015 and what is needed in 2020. Now, I do have to clear my throat and say, well, I actually agree with the top 3 for 2020, especially in this pandemic. Take a look at those top 3 skills: complex problem solving, creative thinking, and creativity. I am willing to bet that every single one of us have really increased our skills in those areas since this pandemic has started. And we've had to rethink so many different things that we do in our personal life and how we take a look at what's happening in the world of work, and even rethinking what kind of work I want to do. There's also been a lot of value clarification, and this is pretty common when these kind of events happen. The term we use is VUCA. VUCA events is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous event that happens in the world that creates a big disruption. And so, and it's just kind of a way of being, of knowing and thinking that there'll be these uncertain times, and how do you prepare for them? So it's just this importance of complex problem solving and critical thinking and creativity is so important. The people management is so important too. Just paying attention, because it's when some people are in the situation where they are and work able to work in remote environments, leading people in remote environments is very different too. Plus, you have to layer on the fact people that are working, possibly working from home, and the entire family is home at the same time, with children all in the house at the same time, doing school and working. and all different things, and caring for parents. There's so much going on. So there's so much complexity right now. It's pretty difficult, and we are doing our best in adapting to change. But the thing is, and I'm still gonna say that these top skills are so important because they're so transferable. Employers really want this. I think the other piece, all the way going, well, actually, I think when I've done this presentation before, some people had some questions about, are these really critical for 2020? And now when I look at all 10 of them, I actually agree with all 10 of them. I think number 10, the cognitive flexibility, is so important of us changing our thinking, and just even as we, I guess, think about the value of how do we care for ourselves in a pandemic. I mean, we have to navigate that all the time, and that's cognitive flexibility. How will we care for ourselves and our family and people we care about? I want to identify emotional intelligence too, number 6, because I think that in this arena now, we have to, I would hope that people are doing a little more self-awareness and also empathy for other people. And that is definitely a skill that a lot of employers are looking for. And I think that we are naturally building it during this pandemic. There's so many considerations. So that's shifted from where we were at in 2015. So that's a little bit more time spent on this, but it's just, I encourage people to continue to think about problem solving, but even take a look at creativity and innovation. So that's a conversation that I often have with people that are working in businesses now, and even a conversation I had yesterday about how this is really the time for organizations to be innovative, and all of us to think about what are the new ways of doing things, because the world is not going to look the same once we come through this pandemic. So many jobs are going to be redefined, and life is redefined. So how can we be innovative? And we've seen a lot of innovations, and that'll continue. So any way that you can continue to focus and even just read a couple articles on how to be innovative, that's helpful. So moving forward.
Rhea,
Yes.
can you explain what service orientation is, please?
So service
Question.
orientation. So then, so we were moving out of more of a manufacturing kind of industry environment. And so that service orientation was more service jobs. So then you'll have more like I think of people that are doing the delivery services for grocery stores now. So service orientation, that's kind of switching where the jobs are in the organization. Did that answer that question? Do you think?
I believe so.
Yeah, helpful. It's just kind of like the shift of that service orientation. So that's how I kind of see it, as just a shift and focus on more of service. Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, so now let's talk about why we don't like change. We like the current safe situation. Yeah, okay, that's not relevant right now, but we're just a little wobbly. We don't like change because it takes work. We may fail or we may lose face. It disrupts our routine, and there's a feeling of loss and security. And there's been a lot of articles floating around about grieving, and that's, part of what happens in change is we have to go to a new perspective. So there's a couple of ways to understand change. And so one, you want to think about the stage of concern, and you're thinking about, how does it impact me? What is it? How does it impact us? There's transitions theory. There's the emotional stages of change, and then a simple change process. So let's look at those theories. So here are the emotional stages of change. And as I mentioned, it can include a grieving process. So first, in the very beginning, there's a denial, and then there's a resistance. I mean, in the beginning, you're kind of focusing on the environment, the outside, and then there's a resistance focusing on the self, then a further exploration, and then a commitment. And so that's moving toward the future. So those are the emotional stages of change: denial, resistance, exploration, and then commitment to what the new change will be. Then this is Bridges' work on the transition theory. And so this is how you're moving through change. First, there's endings, and you're saying goodbye, you're letting go. And in some situations, you're losing a sense of identity. Then you move into the neutral zone, and you do spend some time there, and it's uncomfortable because it's unclear and it's a lot of uncertainty. And there's some exploration. What could be next? What could happen? Then there's the moving forward stage, and there's new beginnings. And this relies on regular and effective communication with others, and also waiting to see how others cope too as you're moving through the change and moving to the new normal. Then Kurt Lewin's simple change process. So first in the unfreeze process is you examine the status quo and you take a look at the driving forces that'll push you toward the change, or the resisting forces that are against the change. So you want to increase the driving forces for change and reduce the resisting forces. Then you move and you take action and you make change, and you start to involve the people in making the change. Then you want to stabilize the change and you refreeze it. So you make the change permanent, you establish the new way of thinking, and then you reward the desired outcomes. So all of these changes require a shift in our identity. So we have to reinvent our identity. So in these role changes, during these role changes, we do have to take great care of ourselves. So at one point, these are some of the identities I thought I was, heading for, or the shifts that I had in my life. I'm no longer aspiring to be a college president. At one point, I really thought I was heading that way. I'm no longer a Fortune 500 leader. I'm no longer a director of training. So these are either things I was aspiring toward or things that I've let go. These are identities that are shifting for me. So I still have things that I learned, but I have to remember that I'm not in those roles anymore. So I take what I learned, but remember that I have to change my identity to where I'm going next. So it's tricky, and there's many ways and layers where I have to shift. And to even adjust to any kind of new culture I'm going to go into, as far as when I'm switching jobs. So I have to kind of take a look at how was I a leader in those organizations, what worked and what didn't work, what is the actual organizational culture or the style that happens in the industry of where I want to head. All these kind of considerations have to happen. And it's so important to build lots of social support. And I want to pause here and talk a little bit about this identity shift. I just finished writing a book chapter, and it's a collection of chapters of people that wrote about when leaders failed. And so I had to tell a story of when I failed at leadership. And then I had to discuss what I needed to change about myself in that. And one of the topics did talk about is, as I changed from different industries, when I was working specifically with military and government and moved into higher ed, the cultures were so different. And so some of my styles of leadership didn't necessarily work in the next culture. So there were some elements where things didn't work out well. And so it was good for me to take a look at that. And also my personality style didn't always mesh with some people. So those were kind of self things that I needed to take a look at so I could be more effective. Of course, again, more self-awareness and adapting to change, self and the environment. So let me ask you this and answer this in the chat. What have been some of your best ways to work through change, or how have you built support networks for yourself? So you could go ahead and answer in chat real quickly. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to put some answers out there. Okay. Lots of good answers coming through. So you want to keep focusing on how are your best ways to work through change and how have you built your support networks. Okay, so now I'm going to shift the topic a little from change over to wellness and then move into telling you a little bit about my story about change. So some of the ways, and one of the biggest ways that's really helped me move through change is taking a look at wellness. And wellness is not just the absence of illness and not just only about the physical. And I look at defining the multiple dimensions of wellness. And I did end up sending out or having them send out a worksheet that had you evaluate where you were on your dimensions of wellness. And there were two worksheets. One was on wholeness and one was a little bit on focus. And these were the definitions of the dimensions of wellness. I'm not saying you're ever going to be in total balance with this, but I will say that if you pay attention to some of these areas, you'll maintain better energy and you will have more stamina as you're making the change, as you're looking for your next opportunity. And it's so important to focus on this because you want to show up well in the interviews, you want to show up, stay balanced and maintain the energy to keep looking and making contacts and networking and moving forward. So in the dimensions of wellness, there's several categories: spiritual, intellectual, social, spiritual, emotional, and occupational. And so these are the definitions of wellness, and these are the exact definitions that are on the handouts. But when they talk about spiritual, it talks a little bit about your sense of purpose and finding meaning in life and awareness of your life journey, and also integrity. And emotional is taking care to notice your feelings and management of stress and resilience and paying attention and awareness of emotion of others. And occupational, it's financial health and sharing your gifts, talents, and skills through work and finding a satisfying career. Physical, and most people link wellness with physical, but it's regular exercise, nutrition, sleep, and some see it as connection to nature. Social, positive connections, encouraging community, connecting, sharing relationships with others, and then intellectual, creativity, reading, learning, and staying current with events. And so this is a whole package way to kind of look at life, look at your whole life, and look at a way to, a different way to just think of wellness. Instead of just, am I ill or not? Let me look at all the dimensions of wellness, and this will help me figure out how to keep my energy going and how I can move through change. So here is a diagram that is the same and stay balanced in change. It'll help you, give you some energy to move forward as you're looking and keeping up with your search. So let me tell you my story. So I was in a leadership role and it was going really cool. It was going very well. And I had just had this great opportunity. I had launched this international conference. It had gone really, really well. Lots of people attended, and I was so excited, and all my projects were going well, and just in the moment, all that. And then part of my balance is sometimes I'm involved in Bible studies once in a while, and I was driving home from a Bible study and wham, I rear-ended a car. And I'm like, okay, whatever, that's a bump in the road, right? Just a simple bump in the road. So I just, normal thing, get towing company, get the car repaired and everything like that. And I had a headache, whatever, maybe a little whiplash. And so I was just going on, and I started to become forgetful, whatever. And I was just moving along with my life and then kind of celebrating my successes and starting to plan for what was next. And super exciting, very, very exciting people wanted to follow up on that conference, and we wanted to start new projects. And then I just noticed myself starting to get super agitated really early. And the other thing that was happening is that usually I could be, I mean, I'm a happy person, but I just noticed I would get so angry so quick. And things that I normally would keep to myself would just jump out of my mouth, like someone I didn't get along with at work. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, you know, you're a real jerk. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? And suddenly I didn't have a control of what I was thinking, or what I was exactly thinking just suddenly came out of my mouth. And I was in the store, and this woman had this really great, she had this great outfit on. And I said, ma'am, really, that outfit is so great. You look great in pink. You should wear that all the time. And then my headaches were increasing. And then just like I felt like my life was on fast forward. And then I took my nephews to the movies, and it was an action movie, and you know, some bomb blew up, and I jumped out of my seat and I screamed, and it was just so unusual. My family didn't know what was going on. And I don't know. So, well, you know what? Those kind of outbursts, well, that led to me being put on administrative leave at work and getting fired. So, and it was just so weird, you know, it was just weird because things weren't going right. And what we ended up finding out is that I had traumatic brain injury, and it was a moderate traumatic brain injury. And I got to tell you, it just really went downhill from there, because I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I lost, I don't know. I just lost control of everything. I mean, I couldn't read. That was one thing. It was so weird because I was so forgetful. I couldn't remember everything or anything. I mean, I'd go to the mall and I couldn't remember where I'd parked my car. And I remember going to, I went to the mall and lost my car. I went to a concert in North Central, and I didn't park in the parking garage or anything like that. And I parked in one of the neighborhoods, and I had a friend with me, and I'm thinking, and it was when we didn't have cell phones to be able to figure out where my car was, or I didn't think to take a picture. It took us 45 minutes to find my car. So it was just kind of the series of like I couldn't think, I couldn't read, I couldn't work. It was terrible. I mean, I was very depressed, and you know, they put me on a lot of different medicines to try and help figure out and try and just follow the pattern of what happens when a person gets a traumatic brain injury. And it was really wild because some of the medicines were so, I mean, I'm a pretty happy person, pretty chatty type person. And suddenly I wasn't. And I didn't smile. And the medicine slowed me so down that I couldn't put my words together. I slept for 13 hours a day. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. It was awful. I didn't have any hope. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I don't know. So one of my friends at church said, I don't know, you're not doing anything. Why don't you sing in the choir? I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I've done some solos in my car. Maybe that'll help. I don't know how to read music. Maybe I'll do that. And so I started showing up every Wednesday, and I'll tell you, it started to help. I felt sorry for the other people in my section because I was terrible. And I couldn't read a note or anything like that. But I just wanted to sing. I tried to sing, and it helped me. It started to help me get back to myself a little bit. And and then my friend said, well, why don't you do something else? Why don't you start riding your bike? I'm like, okay. So I started at 10 minutes a day. And that grew into 6 miles a day. And then I said, okay, well, maybe there's a way out of this. Maybe there is a way out of this, and luckily I kind of networked out of it. I networked and said, who else might know about this and who else might have some solutions? And so a lot of people had solutions, and we were able to kind of put those wellness principles all together and pull together and say, hey, what can you do? Like, let's pull this together. And I will tell you, we looked at all the avenues: physical, intellectual, social, spiritual, emotional, occupational, and emotional. Let's change this brain. Let's see what we can do. Art, music, nutrition. I changed everything I was eating. I was eating blueberries. I made sure to eat an avocado every day. Avocado, or at least, what is it? Avocado oil, or those kind of things to help rebuild my brain. And those things started to work. But I will tell you, the winner in the situation was the singing. Because I really couldn't read. I could read, but I could not retain anything. So I could read something, but couldn't retain anything. And so I was going to one of my doctors, and I had started singing in the end of August. So the car accident happened in March. And then, there was time. I had gotten fired from the job, time. And then by August, my friend had asked me to join the choir. And I was in the doctor's office in November, and I started to sing one of the choruses for one of the songs. And he says, wait a minute. How can you do that? And that's when we learned that my brain was healing from the singing. And so we were all so excited. We were all so very excited, and we knew that everything that we were putting into it was working. Everything, the nutrition, the exercise, the art that I was doing. I did a thing called brain gym, and I worked with a dance movement therapist. A friend said, here's a thing, it's called brain gym, and do dance movement therapy. So I would do all these exercises that would cross the hemispheres of my brain, so I would be able to build and rebuild my brain. So here are some of the things that I did, the choices I made for wellness. So physically, nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Intellectually, I learned to sing. And I did workshops. I attended different workshops, social, volunteering time, and spending time with family and friends. It was a little bit of a struggle until my friends and family knew that I was coming back. I was awake again, and I was able to wean off the really heavy medicines that changed my personality, and I got my personality back, as we can see. Spiritual, finding meaning and purpose in church. I was able to volunteer and start volunteering for some other organizations, which helped me rebuild my confidence and get me back out there working with people, so I could get over being fired, so I could get over feeling like I had no purpose and that I didn't have a life, that I had no future. And that wasn't the plan. And that I could pull through this. Emotionally, I did a lot of journaling. I had a behavioral coach, a therapist. Environmentally, I had to make changes to make my life a lot easier. And then occupationally, I will not say this was easy. It was not easy. And people, I remember asking some people, a lot of people ask how long did it really take? And it really did take probably 2 years, 2.5 years to kind of move through. I am completely recovered, by the way. I'm very happy about that because I've been retested and all that. So occupationally, what did I do? So, let me go back and say, this wellness thing, it works. So thinking about and taking a focus on your wellness is so important overall for your entire life. So occupationally, how did I do this? So I did networking. I know we're in a lockdown kind of environment. But what I found in this time, I have actually been doing a lot of networking through different webinars that I've attended, because a lot of people are offering a lot of free content, and then usually they do have opportunities to network afterwards. So that's one way that I've been networking during this time. I did take on a lot of part-time jobs or gigs. And so people are surprised at this, and it's partially because of where I was heading to. I had hoped to do business training and or get back into being a professor again. So I did balance, and as crazy as it is, between 4 and 7 part-time gigs. I know that it is a lot. It was a lot to manage, and I'm still impressed that I was able to do that after recovering from a brain injury. But it was a way for me to expand my skills, because after being out of work for that amount of time, I had to get up to speed on technology. I had to. I had, in 2 years, I missed a lot. So I had to retrain myself on that. So I did a ton of informational interviewing, and I am such a fan of that. And I do want to put a plug out for my friend, and I know she's spoken to this group, and she is in Wheaton. She's a business coach. Her name is Vicki Austin, and she has a great book called, oh my gosh, it used to be called Golden Rolodex, but I think but her name is Vicki Austin, and she has a great book about networking. And basically, when you do informational interviewing, you want to ask people for their ideas, thoughts, and opinions. And so that's really great to find out about different industries and career fields. And I did work with a career coach. And so in that, we did a lot of self-assessments. I mean, I had experience. I had a lot of different experience. And I joked about the shampoo girl. That was my very first job, and I did a terrible job at it when I started work. But it's all these different experiences and figuring out what did I really want to do, what were my strengths, and what motivated me. And so I thought that was important to pay attention, to do a really good self-assessment and decide, what do I want to spend my time doing? And then start looking for jobs that had those kind of areas that motivated me. So let me see what I have next. Oh, here's all the career coach topics. So first, it is really, who am I? And I took a ton of assessments, and the networking, informational interviewing, a ton of value clarification. So for me, culture was a big deal. I want to be in a culture where I'm not going to get, I want a supportive culture and coworkers that I liked. She had me do this activity where I wrote about my ideal work environment and what were my coworkers like. And I thought that was so important. So to kind of, to think about what kind of coworkers do I want? That was really important in picking where I wanted to work. I did a lot of possibility thinking, what's possible. And so I kind of put together for myself, I call it a portfolio career, because right now I still maintain a lot of the volunteering that I do, but I am working full-time as a professor, and then I do speaking. And so and maintain my volunteer community, work too, and I really like that. So I landed a new experience, and it has been a really good, excellent growth for me. Of course, keeping up with technology, and that's in my current role. One of the rules in our department is we have to do a technology training every year, and I think that that's great and important. So that's just something that is vitally important to not fall behind. So that was my process, and I just looked at my watch and I realized I talked a lot. So this was my process of working with a career coach. And so it was a lot about finding out myself, and I know that you do a lot of this with WorkNet. So
Maria,
yes.
a couple comments here. One is people appreciate what you've just shared. One of the questions came up is, how do you deal with the destruction of the past? There was a boss in a company that had a bad view of your performance. And because of the past, it's not your fault, but if anyone asked their feedback, about you, how did that affect you going ahead, or did you even pay attention to that? Because it's always in our heads.
I had to do, okay, so I did some journaling around that. And so of course I had to answer, because sometimes that is a question people will ask, is why did you leave your last position? And so that was, my career coach had me formulate an answer. And that, you know, and part of that answer was the organization was moving in a new direction. And so that was true, because then it, luckily for me in that scenario, that organization was reorganizing. So I was able to kind of use that, and they did actually eliminate the spot I was in. So that kind of, it was a half truth. Then dealing with the past, I did a lot of, my coach had me do some, for writing, some journaling around it, about writing out all the angry things and then writing out all of the things that I learned. And so those were the key things, that was a way that I moved through the past. So that was one way. So I was able to walk away with the learning lessons. So that was how I dealt with the hard part of the past.
Okay,
So,
and are there any assessments that you took that you would recommend, like Myers-Briggs or SWOT or DISC or
so
anything?
So the biggest one that I love, and it used to be free, but it is not, is okay. So my recommendations. I mean, I am a fan of Myers-Briggs. I am a fan of DISC. Um, I am a fan of Strength Finders. For me, depending on your age, well, it isn't really an age thing. I think motivated skills is really important. That one, you can identify what you know how to do, and then what motivates you. And that was the most insightful for me, because I had a lot of experience. So then I was able to pick 5 motivated skills that I would focus on for my next career.
Okay,
And I will say one more thing about assessments is, there is, James Madison University has a collection of leadership instrument. They have a leadership instrument library that you can look at all kinds of assessments, and they'll tell you whether they're free or not, and they're self-assessments. So that's free. You just have to look that up.
what was that university again?
It's called James Madison University. And
Okay,
so they just decided to pull those instruments together, and I thank them for it.
okay, great, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the questions. And I will say that when I did the journaling, and I had to do it a couple of times, so it does take some time to get through the hard past. So, okay. So I want to talk briefly around attitude. So psychological capital falls under the concept or the movement called positive psychology or flow psychology. And this is one element. And basically it falls under, the term is called hero. And I want you to be a hero for yourself. And so this is all kind of the detail of it. It's like having confidence, self-efficacy, taking on a positive, optimistic attitude, redirecting your path and goals with hope, and then bouncing back time after time and being resilient. And so I want you to just think about, I want you to work through change, think about wellness, and be your own hero. So this is a little bit more the simpler version of how you can be your own hero with hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. So I want to ask you, and put this in the chat, is what aspects of your wellness might need attention in this current transition time? Or where might you take action? Lots of good answers coming through. And every answer is good. So I briefly said this already right before this slide, is how do you take care of yourself and change? Is I want you to be a hero for yourself, and all the people that you impact. I mean, you are a hero, you are the hero of your life. And then I want you to think about your personal wellness, because when you're well, you're your best self. And, you know, and even if you are, and I will say this, and even if you are living with some chronic condition, you can still be your best self. I do have a little bit of an issue with sinus stuff that's chronic, but I'm still well. I'm still well. It's a lot about your attitude and about how you look at all the dimensions, because there's so many dimensions of wellness. You have options to build that all out. So stay balanced in change. Think about that. Think about all the ways, and this is a lot. The best thing is take micro movements. So I know it seemed like I took on a lot. I did not take everything on at once. One day it started with blueberries, 10 minutes of biking, attending a choir rehearsal, trying something new. It started small, but the first point is really to take a look at those assessments that are in the worksheets and take a look at where you were at and where do you want to be. And then plot out, what might you start next week? What might you think about and plan for Monday? What is I know that in the job search, it's so good to have a schedule, so schedule this in. It's important. It's important. And even those Zoom things, fitting those in to be connected to people. I know that there's been a lot of different kind of exercise classes that have been offered through Zoom. And I know some of the clubs are open now, but those are important too, because you connect to people and networking. It's so important. So this is how you enjoy the ride. And so when we come to riding, that is one of my bikes and one of my pictures. Photography is another one of my ways that I balance change and take care of myself. So how do you navigate riding through change? So first you risk, and that's the ability to take a chance on change. You have those courageous conversations. Then, so that's the R in RIDE. Then you innovate. So you're willing to explore new ideas, territories, and think creatively. Then in the D, you decide. And it's the ability to select choices and move forward. And then E, that's a hard one. It's the enduring. So it's the consistency. It's your commitment for the long road of implementing change. So first you risk, and then you're risking, innovating, deciding, and enduring. And so that is navigating the ride of change. So it takes all these decisions. You first have to make a decision, and you want to make a plan for change. So you do have a worksheet that asks you to think about, where are you going to risk, where are you going to innovate, where are you going to decide, and how will you endure. And so I want you to go ahead and think about that and write that down, because as I said at the beginning, it's so important to take this time, invest in yourself, and write something down so you're more likely to take action on it. And I know we're in a Zoom environment. You do have a worksheet, but you could also put it in chat. So it says complete your plan and share in chat, but maybe you just want to put something down. Where might you risk, innovate, or decide, or how might you endure, and put that in chat right now. What's your plan? I got to think about, I'm doing an eating plan right now. That's my new thing. My new thing is I'm eating every 2.5 hours. And so I think that's been really helpful for me. That's been helping me as far as with clarity and focus. Smaller meals every 2.5 hours, and ensuring I get enough water and protein. So that's been my new wellness topic, because I noticed during the pandemic, I varied. When we were in the lockdown, I became a reward winner at Oberweis on one hand, and then I also was a person that forgot to eat. So I thought, let me have a plan around eating in this. So that was my variation. So I took action on that about a month, about 5 weeks ago. And so it's been going pretty good. So, so those are some things to kind of consider. Where are you with, what is your personal action plan? So I want to leave you with this quote about the ride of change. And so when it's just about the evolution, is for a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must come completely undone. The shell cracks, its insides come out, and everything changes. And to someone who doesn't understand growth, it would look like complete destruction. And so, and that's the thing, is right now, everyone's undone right now. Everyone's become undone, and we've had to make changes, but we're resilient and we're bouncing back. It looks different for everyone, but it's just a matter of making some decisions, being creative, and taking a look. In my preference is to take a look at wellness and figure out how will you reinvent yourself through looking through the many dimensions of wellness and the dimensions of how you can reinvent your career. Mine looks really different than what it did before. That's for sure. Much happier. I'm in a much better culture, and I take much better care of myself than what I did before. And so I'm so thankful for that. But it did take an investment to change. So I thank you so much, and I feel so blessed to be able to share this information with you. So I encourage you to definitely connect to me on LinkedIn. And I am a fan of biking, and maybe if you do have a bike, go ride a bike if you can, or definitely a lot of people have taken a walk. If get outside, it's so beautiful. And I think that has been so nice in this opportunity that people have had a chance to get outside and take a walk. I know the temperature was so beautiful. Yesterday was such a beautiful day. So I want you to go ride a bike, get out there. I know Jim has gotten on his bike, and we've joked a little bit about that. I challenge anybody to go to the Lamont Quarries. I haven't been there. I don't know if I'll be climbing the Adventure Towers. I think it looks interesting, but I'm not sure if I'm quite there. And I wish you all the best. I know that great opportunities are coming. They may look a little different. But it's all in how we adapt in this. And I think that that's what employers are looking for. They're going to ask, how did you adapt? So I want you to be a hero, keep riding, and enjoy the ride. So, and I think someone raised a hand. So thank you so much.
Let's see, just a couple points here in the Q&A. Someone was talking about a resource to organize your action plan is apexcareercenter.yournextstep.com. It's built by CareerArc and has no cost to it to create a profile. SlideShare has a lot of tons for PowerPoint. And let's see what else. I'm just looking here. Oh, okay.
No, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great because this is one of these places where I was just on a webinar. This whole week I've been on a lot of different webinars because I'm learning a lot. I'm doing some certifications myself, and just the sharing is incredible because we have the capability to be able to chat with so many people on these sessions. It's great.
Yeah, I would just say that Maria and I talk about bike riding, and it's been hard for me to get back on it because I had knee replacement, but it was one of the best things, and I did get up to 8 miles.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have to but it just, the toughest for me is that first step out the door.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, I know I talk about how, whatever, I did the 5,700 miles. And I'll tell you, even if it's 1 mile a day, like today, I only did 2 miles, I'm not saying only, it's 2 miles. It's 2 miles more than I would have done if I didn't go anywhere. It's not, to me, it's just consistency. Because while I was riding, I got this really great idea. So I guess my thinking in this is you got to get to some activity where you're in the very present moment, where you can think, where you're just thinking about, I'm riding my bicycle so I can get some good ideas. And while I was riding, I thought of a really good idea for one of the research studies I'm doing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's the last piece of the puzzle. And I wouldn't have got it if I wouldn't have ridden. So.
Yeah, I came up with a whole game concept one time, just riding the bike, because it generates those creative, I don't know, ideas once you get past the first mile, for me anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole thing, is how do you be present? Because there's so many ways to get distracted today, and it's so easy. We have so many things to distract us. It's so important to find some activity where you can be completely present. I've been doing a lot of gardening. I have found weeding is also a very present moment thing.
Yeah. I used to have these weeds 6 feet tall almost behind my garage, and it was always a war. But that's where I learned about networking, is they were all interconnected. I said, this is perfect.
Well, I mean, this is probably a terrible example, but I do have to say that I have laughed at myself because I think this little thing, it's called a vole maybe, I learned, and I feel like Bill Murray on Caddyshack because I've been trying to move him from this one garden to the other. So I put garlic in his hole, in his little holes, to see if I can get him to move out of one garden to the other.
Yeah.
I need a hat, and I'll be like varmint.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is, if we could swap screens, because I want to.
Oh, yes. Let me stop.
Certainly, you can type some more questions or anything, but I just want to talk a little bit about future events.
Were there any outstanding questions that I missed?
A lot of thank yous. Excellent presentation.
You're welcome.
And they're also talking about IllinoisWorkNet.com has some, IllinoisWorkNet.com has Coursera courses that are free with certifications.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh, sorry to cut you off, but the Science of Well-Being is a really good course to take, and that's free. That's the Science of Well-Being has a lot of the good activities too on wellness too. But yes, Coursera is great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
They're working it out with the state, and I think everything has to be completed by sometime in December. So there's some good stuff there. The presentation is being recorded. It will be on worknetdupage.org at the webinar. Please go there. There's a lot of great presentations from the past. I know I like live, but there's so much great information. You're bored, you got nothing to do, watch one of these. I was just on there the other day and I was like, wow, there's a lot of great stuff. Some great presentations. Just like you to know that we do have a survey, and we like reading comments from the survey because that helps us improve our services, as well as what job search topics might be of interest to you, and that we can line up speakers in the present or in the future, and also design job search workshops. Those of you who are working with a counselor through WorkNet DuPage, part of the grant process, if you're going to go to training, or if you're working with job search with us, is to maintain monthly contact with your counselor. So by attending this workshop, you've fulfilled that requirement for the month. And this code, R.I.D.E. 302, is all you have to do is email that to your counselor, and then they know you attended the workshop today. No hidden code, really. It's just R.I.D.E. 302. I thought that was appropriate for today. Okay, let's see, what do we have coming up? Again, I encourage you to let us know when you get a job. We've had some people get jobs in the past. I don't know if Jennifer or Javon has anyone they'd like to talk about. But I know when I do presentations, I like to tell stories. That's how we learn. And people from the past have some great stories. If you go to our LinkedIn profile or our website, we have Betty, who struggled because she was worried about being too old, being laid off and all this stuff. And she eventually found a position, I believe with Ray Graham. But you can read her story. And then I've heard of people that, we had some people that survived Nigeria and wound up going to Malaysia and then coming here, and the struggle and how they looked for work and how they adapted to find positions. And I love this stuff, so it motivates me and it motivates others, because we have a tendency when we're laid off to focus on ourselves, and we think, oh boy, it can't get worse. And I remember being in the Army as a young lieutenant, and we'd been at tank gunnery for 2 weeks in the winter without a shower, and most of the tanks didn't have heaters. And I said to my platoon sergeant, I said, man, can it get any worse? And he says, please, sir, don't challenge worse, because it will show up. And so that's when I learned never to say, can it get any worse? Some people have it, we all have different experiences. We all deal with it differently. But I like focusing on people's successes, because the journey, just like the slide that Maria showed, there's a lot of resistance and acceptance, and eventually it's fantastic. Let's see here. Coming up is next week, we have Louisa Bueller talking about, excuse me, I'm just trying to get one of our trainers on to talk so that she can tell us about a job. Well, anyway, Louisa Bueller will talk about hurry up and wait. And that is kind of ironic, because I just told you about a story about the Army, but it kind of seems like that. You got to get your application in, you got to jump through all these hoops. I saw it happen with my son. Within 4 days, it was a whirlwind, from HR contacting to assessments, video interviewing, being briefed on how to do a STAR interview, and, or behavioral interview, and then nothing. So I just find it fascinating. So anyway, let's see. We have job clubs coming up. We're finalizing it right now. And if you would look at, every Friday is the 7th, the 14th, 21st, and 28th. Okay. Let's see. This is my worknetdupage.org is the website. Again, go to our Get Started screen. And then, let's see, my email is jfergal and worknetdupage.org. And let me see here. There is someone who got a job from out of state, or got a job out of state. Siobhan had a client, and she's relocating out of state. She will tell me more as we come in. So if you are new, please go to Get Started, fill out the questionnaire. And again, Tuesday, we have the from layoff or to launch. And what I'd like to say there is it'll explain the program, it'll explain the training, and it will also explain the how you can receive unemployment and how to qualify and our services. Again, if you're already filled out the questionnaire and application, please, you don't need to go to that workshop again or reapply. You're already working with us. Okay. Let's see. I think that's everything. If there's any other questions you may have, please feel free to put them in right now. Otherwise, I'm going to stop recording. And okay. All righty. I'm going to stop recording.